So,
I'll be back in here.
Got some polls.
okay.
Oh, yeah, it's just the setup. Yeah, it is. The people on the track go around and
Bill.
Good afternoon. Welcome to our April meeting, our first meeting in April. Spring is sprung. It's good being back in council and chambers in regards to our meetings. We've been over at the rec center and that was good. We are still social distancing and wearing masks, but it's good to be back home. Our invocation tonight will be given by Councilman John Robertson and respect to the flag be led by Councilman Don Chapman. Please rise.
Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you tonight to ask your blessings on this city, its employees, leaders, and citizens. Tonight, as we discuss the business needs of our city, I ask for your guidance in the decisions we make tonight, that they would be beneficial for the greater good of all of our citizens and our community. Lord, we thank you for the blessing of helping our country and our world defeat this unforeseen pandemic, which has impacted each and every one of us, and we ask that you will continue to do so in a swift manner. As always, we ask that you continue to bless our military, police, firefighters, and first responders as they place their lives in harm's way to protect us. In your name we pray, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we start tonight, we have a couple of special recognitions, presentations. And the first one is, and I never get tired of doing this, is recognizing this young lady behind me, Dr. Lee Thompson. And Dr. Thompson is, I believe, is the longest serving, I have not verified this, but she's the longest serving council member in the state of South Carolina. And those should be an applause right there for doing that. But she was just recognized just this past Friday by the South Carolina African American Heritage Commission, and she was named the recipient of the 2001 Preserving Our Places in History Award. Now, the ceremony was virtual in Columbia. We did get several weeks ago, we got a peek preview here in Anderson where they videotaped our session here, but the work is basically surrounded her, Dr. Thompson's work on the Church Street Heritage Park, which is just something that she worked on for many years, and the Westside Community Center. We all know that she's very committed to that. She almost single-handedly, with a group of people, but she was the driving force in making sure that that building was repurposed into a community center, and we appreciate her work there. And last but not least is she has a park named after her, and that park has some renovations, and again, very responsible for all of that. And so I will read that the nomination stated that Dr. Thompson has been an advocate for preserving and promoting African American history and places for more than 4 decades, and 2020 was another banner year for her. With her trademark grace and kindness, she lifts up a community in a myriad of ways with lasting impact. And so we join the commission along with our council in recognizing our friend and our colleague, Dr. B. Thompson.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, everybody, for showing up tonight for this event. First of all, I want to thank the mayor for presenting this award. Secondly, I want to thank the South Carolina Commission for recognizing what we have done here in Anderson. And it's not just about my honoring, it's about the community that I live in, the community of Anderson, of which I am very proud. So I really think that this honor goes to you. But when I look at it and I think about it, as the mayor pointed out, for many years we have worked to preserve the legacy of Black African Americans in this community. It could not have been a successful project had it not been for people like you. And then I have to look around and see my council members, the mayors who worked for many years, because it couldn't have been successful without their moral support, their encouragement, and really their financial support. These projects cost money, but then they were able to support us with that. And I want to say, please give them a hand. Thank you. But most of all, I think I ought to say that the honor belongs to the pioneers, the Black African pioneers who worked for many years against many hardships in developing the Church Street Project. How many of you have seen the Church Street Project? Isn't it wonderful? Yeah, if you haven't seen it now, please do, because it's representative of what Black African Americans worked so hard to put together for, I would guess, for 70 years. They had all kind of businesses. They worked together. And actually what they did was to show us what we ought to do to make things come to fruition. So I am so proud of that, and I hope that it will not only be recognized, but preserved for many, many years to come. And thank you again for coming out tonight to really, with us, to honor the Black legacy.
Thank you. The last thing, before we get to the body of our meeting, we do have a proclamation. The proclamation reads, whereas the month of April is recognized throughout the United States of America as Fair Housing Month, and where Title VIII of the Civil Rights Act of 1968, as amended, set forth a national policy of fair housing without regard to race, color, national origin, religion, sex, family status, or disability. And whereas housing is a critical component of family and community health and stability. And whereas both the state and federal offices of the Department of Housing and Urban Development continue their efforts to promote and educate as many citizens as possible about every person's right to enjoy equal opportunities in housing, that all Americans have the opportunity to achieve the American dream of home ownership. And whereas the City of Anderson continues to affirmably further fair housing for its citizens. Now, therefore, I, Terrence V. Roberts, Mayor of the City of Anderson, along with my fellow council members, do hereby proclaim April of 2021 to be Fair Housing Month in the City of Anderson for the significance of fair housing to our way of life, and encourage all citizens to observe and support both the letter and spirit of fair housing as an expression of individual rights guaranteed by the United States Constitution and the Constitution of the State of South Carolina. And Erica, could you come up and say a few words while, and Michael come up, and Michael is our chair, and Erica is our division head. And I'll ask these guys to come up.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As Mayor Roberts said, April is recognized annually as Fair Housing Month, and this is a time that we set aside in our department and throughout the city just to allow persons the opportunity to find out more about fair housing and housing opportunities in Anderson. We've been doing this for a number of years, and we have a board, the Community Housing Resource Board, that works cooperatively with our department. We have a Fair Housing Coordinator, Mary Jones, and this evening we have with us the Community Housing Resource Board Chairman, Michael Cunningham. We also have Willie Day, a member of our Community Housing Resource Board, and my predecessor and former Director of Community Development that worked for many years to promote fair housing and affordable housing for workforce persons in the Anderson area. So at this time, I'll ask Michael to just say something about the activities that we have planned for this month.
Mr. Mayor, City Council, Erica, thank you very much. Before I do that, I just want to take this opportunity to thank the Mayor and the City Council and the City Administration for their steadfast support of fair housing through the Fair Housing Coordinator and our Community Housing Resource Board. Your support over many years has really made the difference in this effort to continue to promote fair housing. And so I just want to pass this opportunity to say thank you for that. Also on April the 29th at 5:30 here in the City Council chambers will be a fair housing workshop. And we will also, recognizing social distancing and wanting to be very safe, we'll also have that streamed online. So that will be something that's available. It's a great information resource, and we have the chance to do a number of these workshops on fair housing, landlord tenant, and other things. And so the next one coming up will be on April the 29th at 5:30 here. And once again, thank you for your support of fair housing and fair housing issues and all the work that I know that you're going to continue to do to help make that a part of this growing and thriving community.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you. The minutes of our March the 22nd meeting have been distributed. Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes? Not any. Do I have a motion to approve? I have a first by Mayor Pro Tem. Second by Mr. Newton. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The minutes of March 22nd passed unanimously. We don't have any old business, so we'll move directly into new business. And our first item of new business is request consideration of a resolution supporting the Anderson Area Remembrance and Reconciliation Initiative and other matters related thereto. And I'm going to kind of give the administrative briefing on this instead of Mr. McEwen, and mainly because I have been involved in the second paragraph with or the third paragraph, what is being recognized as the Anderson Area Remembrance and Reconciliation Initiative. And I didn't know he was coming, but Stuart Sprague, a lot of people know Stuart. Raise your hand, Stuart. Stuart approached me several years ago about basically erecting a marker like that's done in Abbeville has one, where they recognize the lynching of a black individual in Abbeville. And so there is an organization called the Equal Justice Initiative out of Montgomery, Alabama. An attorney by the name of Brian Stevenson has developed or spent his professional career in a lot of different things, but one of them was recognizing these injustices that have happened over the course of our country's history. And what we found was that we had 5 lynchings that we could know happened just through research, newspapers that happened in Anderson County. And so this committee was saying, okay, what can we do to talk about the past, to recognize the past, and create a dialogue going forward on how we get along. We were just talking just before the meeting about, just the things that are happening all over our country. And we've got to talk about it. And, the markers are memorials that address slavery and lynchings and racial segregation. And also see Dr. C. Mueller up here. He's been involved in this, and so our county administrator, Rusty Burns, was one of the first people involved in, the 5 or 6 people on this committee. And what we're presenting tonight is a resolution, and our counterparts up the street approved this resolution at their meeting last Tuesday. And obviously, it's just recognizing the past and how we go forward. So, having said that, I would open it up to any questions or comments. And if I can't answer them, I would hope that maybe Stewart could help me.
Mayor?
Yes.
Thanks for your work and other members of our community working on laying the groundwork with this, and hopefully it can continue to move forward in some type of permanent, whether it be a marker or memory or something like that, to acknowledge history that happened and, like you said, help us move forward together. And I appreciate the people in the community working on this. So I'd like to make a motion we approve this.
We have a first by Ms. Harvey.
Second.
Second by the Mayor Pro Tem. Any further discussions, questions? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That passes unanimously. Thank you, guys. We will move on to our second item, and it's a request consideration of a construction contract for water service maintenance on Marshall Avenue. Mr. Quinn?
Mayor and council, as you know, we have a master plan for our water system that we methodically work through. But at times as well, there's good coordination efforts between us and the Department of Transportation. This is one of those opportunities where roads are about to be paved, and there's an opportunity for us to do some upgrades. And so Jeff Caldwell, our utilities director, is going to provide the request to you for some upgrades in coordination with DOT. Mr. Caldwell.
Mr. Kewen, Mayor and Council, most of you are aware on Marshall Avenue that DOT had started some deep depth milling and patching earlier this year in preparation for a full restoration project there. During some of the initial work, the milling operations did damage some water there, so we were called in, make some repairs, and renew some services there. In making those repairs, we did notice that some of the services were initially put in with a lead material, and so as part of this project, we'd like to go ahead and get those out there under the roadway to keep us from having to go back at a later date. Any maintenance concerns there or any regulatory issues that may come up. The EPA just has a new lead and copper rule. It was actually scheduled to go into effect in March, which kind of initiated this process, seeing what those requirements were. But that has been extended till June, and it provides us guidance with how we are to identify and document lead services in our water system. And the plan gives direction so that we can focus sampling more in those areas where there are lead service lines or potential lead service lines, and requires us to create a lead service line replacement program should those results indicate presence of lead and would lead to those projects. Now, it is noteworthy that our treatment process does inject a chemical, a phosphate chemical into the water. Duke did it before us. The Anderson Regional Joint Water System does that now. That actually coats the insides of our pipes. And so by doing that, the water really does not come in contact with our pipes. So we don't think there is a potential health hazard there. We know there's not a potential health hazard there from samples we've done over the years. But operations and maintenance things that go on that bump the pipe or things inside the pipe that may cause a water hammer or things like that could disrupt that and lead to a possibility, although a low possibility. So SCDOT did agree to postpone the final resurfacing for approximately 2 months and give us time to replace the lines on this project. So since time was of the essence, we did go through our emergency procurement process and solicited bids from some local contractors. We did solicit from 4. 3 of those did submit bids. They're all pretty tight. We have worked with Stone Grading before out of Star, South Carolina, as a primary contractor, general contractor, and also as a sub under some of the others. We believe and we know that moving forward this will help us meet our goals to provide the highest quality water possible. There are funds available in our water fund to support the project, and with that we would recommend approval of a construction contract with Stone Grading in the amount of $141,600 for this water service maintenance project. It does include 48 services along the street there.
Thank you, sir. Questions, comments? Mr. Chadwick?
I guess a couple of questions. So the first thing was the water lines that were there, were they not at the proper depth
Yes, sir.
from when they were initially installed, or had it been lowered over the course of many years since it's been installed?
The actual main line is of sufficient depth. The services, when they were installed, were put in a lot shallower. So when they went through with their equipment, it was in contact and damaged the pipe, damaged those services.
So the second question is, I've never heard of deep depth milling. I don't know if we've done a lot of that, but is SCDOT, are they doing anything to reimburse us for at least for the repairs until the lines are replaced?
No, sir. No, sir. We will fund the project. The lines will stay in place. They're just new services on that existing main. That makes sense. Is that the question?
But basically, it's all on us.
Yes, yes. And we're going to get it done before doing it the other way. If we were to go in and damage a brand new road, we would be responsible for more extensive repairs than what we would have to do just making these services.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Ms. Locke?
I noticed that there was lead lines. Do we have any other parts of the city where some of this is possible?
It is possible. The plumbing code changed, I believe, in the mid-'80s that did away with lead services of this type. Anything built past that would not have. Anything built before that would have the potential. And that's kind of where we would probably target our research, is to try to narrow down areas that were before 1985, and then some experience that we've had in those areas would potentially either confirm or allow us to remove those from the list.
How does that phosphate stuff work that you were talking about?
It basically coats the inside of the pipe, so it attaches itself to the insides of all the pipe materials.
So in houses that are existing now, we would have a phosphate lining basically inside the pipe?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Ms. Roberts?
Just so you all know, I grew up on Marshall Avenue. Moved there when I was 7 years old.
Wow.
So that's been 52 years ago, and so that may explain a lot if I've been drinking the water. I'll let you know my parents still live there, and my son and his fiancée as well. So have a long history on Marshall Avenue. A couple of questions, and I spoke to you earlier just to get my questions answered, but I wanted to, mainly for the public to know that we, as our water system, have been ahead of this with the coding system, and it's still in place, and that has caused some other communities elsewhere serious problems. But just to let the general public know that this has been in place since Duke Power's days of running the operation. So there's a level of comfort there. So, and I know you're going to continue to do sampling, and that bears out all the facts right there.
So
I know you'll continue to find these.
Part of the process there is to sample initially before we go in and replace the services, and also sample afterwards because we are disrupting the piping and the piping materials, and then we'll also supply some educational material to the customers there, letting them know what their service material is, and also giving them guidance on how to take care of that.
Very good. And Mayor, unless there are other questions, I would like to move that we accept Stone Grading's bid of $141,600.
Thank you. First by Mr. John
Second.
Roberts.
Second.
Second by Mr. John Roberts. Very good. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our last item of new business is request consideration of a resolution consenting to the judicial closure and abandonment of a portion of Summit Avenue and a portion of College Avenue and matters related thereto. Mr. McEwen?
Mr. Mayor and City Council, the City Attorney and I would like to request that we enter executive sessions for some discussion of some legal matters pertaining to this item and return to the open session.
I would entertain a motion to go into executive session. First by Mr. John Roberts.
Second.
Second by Mr. Don Chapman. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? We stay in executive session. We're going to stay in here and ask everybody to step out.
owned and maintained by SCDOT. There's a legal process for that, which signs have been posted and the location for prior to them petitioning the court system following the state law procedure. It also brings in the needed consent of the city council, the city government is involved in that process as well. Also, I'll just let Maurice touch on real quick some of the highlights of the campus master plan and some prior discussions and how this is tied into some other actions that have been taken previously.
Right, thank you. Yeah, as part of Anderson University's master plan, that they do plan to make some changes on the western side of their campus, which includes creating a boundary to essentially cut off their campus from the adjacent Springdale area neighborhood. By doing so, they're proposing several improvements, which is a landscaping buffer to be as the boundary for the university's growth. They're wanting to incorporate some new parking in that general area, as well as a multi-use pedestrian path as well. And this is something you're familiar with from the rezoning that took place back in September of last year, so it wasn't that long ago. As part of the process, it does go before the circuit court, and they will be filing petition, as Mr. McEwen said. But back to the proposal itself, in order to create the parking and those amenities, they will have to abandon some of the street, and actually part of it is Summit Avenue, College Avenue, and you can see that in your handouts, the portions that are proposed to be removed from the state system. This is a state road, or both of them are state roads. But again, in order to comply with their master plan and their growth in that area, and to create that boundary between the residential neighborhood and the university itself, they are proposing to close and abandon these portions of the streets.
Thank you. Before we get into our discussion on council, I want to open up the floor, opportunity for anybody to talk. And Boyd, I know you sent an email to council. We distributed that email to our entire council earlier today. Would you like to address us?
Sure.
Yes, please.
I live in the Anderson University area at 607 Boulevard. I see a few of my neighbors here today, Dr. Seemuller, Steve Hunter, Bill Huskamp. We are not on the western side of the parking lot. We understand that Anderson University is growing. They need more parking spaces. However, I do feel, and I believe these people share the same sentiment, that closing one side of a very large parking lot, a parking lot which is being expanded, obviously not a street that needs to be abandoned because it is a destination. It's several hundred parking spots. Anderson University has large events there. Those large events bring in numerous cars, and they all leave at one time. The students come in and out constantly. And now, because traffic is being closed off for one side, which I'm sure those residents in that neighborhood are pleased, it's going to be diverting traffic to the other side. Traffic will be increased on Ridgecrest. It will be increased on Boulevard. We already have a very busy street. We have dormitories. We have a crosswalk. We have traffic backed up at a street light. Several residents have trouble getting in and out of their driveway. I'm just concerned that we're adding to the problem on Boulevard. I'm not against the expanded parking. If you can find a way to do it, to keep that entrance open and have a thoroughfare of the parking lot so it is essentially a street, so that you maintain utilities that are currently there, so that emergency access to the university is not impeded, so that they don't have golf carts coming to Boulevard to go around the block to get to their building on Springdale. I just think there's no compelling reason to do this. Creating a boundary, it's fine, but you're not creating a boundary on our side. It's a very large parking lot. I think it needs to maintain all the entry access points that it currently has. And I understand 501 and 503 College Avenue are being torn down, and those will be paid. Looking at the drawings that AU has supplied, the latest, my estimation is that only 12 parking spaces are in the footprint that is currently College Avenue. I used to own 503 College Avenue, right, the house right there where the street's being closed. I didn't ask you to close the street and give me the land. So I ask that you consider this. I know you've discussed this with AU, been in development with them. I think it's a good thing for the city. I'm glad they're growing. I'm glad for what they do. I just want that parking space to have entrance so that people going to Green Street and Boulevard and through Ridgecrest, right between Boulevard Baptist Church and their Family Life Center, it's going to divert traffic there as well. So thank you for that, and please consider my thoughts in making your decision.
Thank you, Ms. Galloway. Does anybody else have anything that strikingly different than Mr. Galloway? Maybe just an Adam until does anybody, go ahead, Adam. I don't think anybody.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. My name is Adam Artigler. I'm with Burns Foreman Law Firm. We represent the university. We're the ones that are bringing the petition and helping the university through the petition process. We're certainly available, as we have been available to the city, to answer any questions that you all have through the process. Essentially what the process is, as you know, have gone through before in certain instances, there's a state process for the closure and abandonment of roads that's set by state statute, and that allows for petitioners to bring before the court the ability to be able to close a road. When they do so, they put up signage, they give notices, they do the different things. We're at that stage right now. Part of this is naming the different entities, the governmental entities, SCDOT, and also the city of Anderson in that action. And then when we bring the action, it'll be heard in front of the circuit court, and then they'll make the decision as to whether it's in the best interest of the public in order to close that road or not. So the role, from my perspective, the role that y'all have is when that petition is served, y'all will be a respondent, and you can respond however which way y'all want to respond with regard to it. We would ask that you consent to it. With regard to the parking lot and the way that it's laid out and the concerns, obviously one of the things that we don't want with the parking lot is for people to use it as a cut-through. And just cut through, that's a dangerous type of situation for the students, people using the parking lot. One of the reasons why parking is important for the university and the expansion of that area is we do have large events, planning on having more large events, planning on having more students, planning on having more stuff. There's no parking there that we are able to offer to people on campus. They're going to park in the neighborhoods, and that's going to create its own traffic issues and its own issues for the city and for the neighbors with the parking that's going to go on outside of the the Anderson University area, excuse me. So we're here to answer any questions that y'all may have about the process and what needs to happen. Just wanted to make those few comments.
Thank you, sir. Any questions, comments, council?
Mayor, I'd like to go ahead and make the motion to approve the resolution consenting to the judicial closure and abandonment of a portion of Summit Avenue and a portion of College Avenue.
Well, first by Mr. Newton.
Second.
Second by Mr. Harvey. Further discussion. Mr. Roberts.
Mr. Galloway, I appreciate your comments and concerns, but I have a question for us, the city. Can we or do we offer any traffic control assistance at large events, moving traffic through those, in and out of those parking lots? Or does the university offer?
Yes, sir. On large events, we do employ officers to help keep traffic in and out.
Your own security officers?
We do our officers, but we also employ the after hours, Henderson City Police Department when needed for the large events.
Such as graduation?
Voice day, graduation, move-in day, activities, those require all parking hands.
Okay. Also, just a comment. Back in our initial discussions with everybody concerned about the rezoning and now the road closure, it was brought to our attention that less than 10% of that parking lot traffic came from the Springdale area. So as I see it, it has minimal impact bringing that 10% or less back around through what I count at least 8 options to get in and out of that parking lot. So I think the impact would be minimal. But I appreciate your concerns. I share your concerns. But if we can do anything as a city or university to help in those large events, large traffic events, I think it would go a long way. Thank you.
One second. Reggie Gay, Vice President of the University Council for Anderson University. But just wanted to say that we are perfectly willing to work with the neighbors in the city, as y'all well know, and any type of ingress, egress, where the entries into the parking lot. These are just concepts. Nothing has been carved in stone, obviously. There would be studies that would be made and recommendations and things of that nature. So our goal is to make it as safe an environment as possible for students and the community. That would include traffic control, pedestrians, all of those, parking on the street, all those things come into play. So we are open to any, working with all the groups in getting a plan that improves our overall community. So that's just, I'll be happy to answer any questions on behalf of the university, but Charlie or Jay is here as well.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Chairman?
I just wanted to add a little bit to it. So I know during our discussions, we appreciate the university accommodating, because one of the concerns was still having pedestrian access for kids to ride their bikes and walk dogs and things like that. And y'all accommodated that almost immediately. And that again prevents people from having to walk through the parking lot to get to the area of Springdale so they can walk or play. But I agree too with what you said earlier, is that creating another cut through, it almost makes it a little too easy to cut through, and that becomes a hazard, because people get hit when people are using it as a cut through. So I think bringing it off of Springdale bringing it off of Ridgecrest is the most ideal. But there's also on the right side of the Brainy Center, there's access to the parking lot from on that side. Secondly, I'd like to agree with what Mr. Roberts said, is that if we can do anything to try to accommodate during the largest events, and I know that y'all play a big role in that as well, I certainly think we should play that role as well.
Any other comments, questions? We have a first and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The resolution passes unanimously. I would entertain a motion to adjourn. First by Ms. Newton.
Second.
Second by Dr. Thompson. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Meeting's adjourned.